Welcome to the Power of Nature podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Waldo. In this show, I talk about how connecting with nature and the natural world can create amazing and immeasurable benefits for us and in our lives. I share stories of my experiences doing this as part of a regular and ongoing practice, and I talk to others about their experiences with the power of nature as well. So join me as we go on a journey of learning about the power of nature and the impact that it can have on our own lives. Welcome back to the Power of Nature podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk about the power of the wind. I may also talk about the power of the rain too, but let's just kind of dive into this and see where it goes. The power of the wind, the power of the wind. The wind is something that I feel like in nature is something that I often forget about. And then when I discover it again or get reminded of it again, I remember just how powerful and magical it is. The experience of experiencing it, how magical it is. I don't really know another word to use with it. But let me talk a little bit about a story that helped me remember the power of the wind. Here in Montana, we had a, as is often the case, we had some pretty hot weather, and it gets hot and dry and kind of still, and a lot of places don't have air conditioning, so people who aren't used to it, they're not used to this kind of dry heat, and it can feel very overbearing. It can feel like, I don't know, like for me, I feel like, I just need to find trees. I need to find shade. I need to find shelter from the sun that can be feeling really hot and just kind of almost unrelenting. And, we don't get into, well, I don't want to say that, but in this period, we weren't getting into like the high 90s and the hundreds, but we were getting into the 90s, and it just can get really hot. And then we had a situation where, it was kind of like days of this, or maybe a week of this. I don't know. Are you having the same situation where you just kind of lose track of time and you're not quite sure like what day it is, or, what used to feel like a week, now can feel like it was years ago? It kind of feels like that a lot lately, I think, for me, and I think for many of us. Anyway, we were having this heat and we were having this kind of unrelenting sun. And then we had these later afternoons, I think it was 2 of them, where we started to have winds. And it was like this respite. It was like this shift in Mother Nature's offerings that just offered such a, respite is the best word. It was like a bounty of grace, of giving in a way in this heat, because the wind, even though it was still hot, the wind seemed to shift the feeling of the endless, relentless heat. And it gave kind of a new sense of, energy, of relief, of feeling kind of like instead of everything being the same and stagnant, it becoming more like it was like a respite, or it was like a little, like a rescue boat, if you will. That's kind of the way it felt. Like here was this hot sun and it was just constant, and you would look at the weather report and just be like, it's the same thing, it's the same thing, it's the same thing. That's all that's being forecasted. And then suddenly this wind came, and maybe other people knew that it was coming, but I didn't know it was coming. So suddenly having it come and experiencing it was like somebody sending you a life preserver when you're out in the ocean and you think you're drowning. It felt like that. It was this amazing feeling of wind. And like I said, even though it was still hot, the wind was enough to shift kind of like the feeling that I was experiencing, and I think many people were experiencing, and it felt so wonderful. It felt so great, and it reminded me of how much I love the wind. I actually love the wind. I've been very scared of the wind at certain times, but I've also loved the wind and been enamored by the wind at so many times in my life. It's almost like the wind is often like an unbridled, uncertain power that we can either feel fear about or we can feel awe about it. And I know I've felt both. So let me give a couple of examples. One was that I remember as a kid, riding horses at this place, horses and ponies at this place where we were boarding. My sister started boarding her horse, and then I was there too. And it was back in the days where, I don't know, I would just get dropped off at the barn and I would just spend all day at the barn out in, and there were just acres and acres. I have no idea how many acres were on this farm, but there were like woods and hills and all different pastures and really steep hills and flat areas and, open areas and grassy areas and all kinds of things. It was kind of like a playground, if you will, of just being able to be out in nature. And really the thing that got me exposed to it was my love of ponies and horses, and a desire to want to have them in my life. And then because of that, I started going to the barn, and I started going out, initially with a pony, and I would just go, sometimes you'd have to walk way out in the pastures, way, way far away to find the ponies and horses that were turned out on pasture and find them and bring them in. Other times, I would go out riding in there in the pastures. Other times I would, just go out and explore. And one of the greatest things about that I remember, one of my greatest memories of those days of just being like out, all day, every day, all the time, is when you would kind of, and I grew up in Pennsylvania, so this would happen in Pennsylvania. It would be like, just, a sunny day, everything would just be normal, it would just kind of be kind of hot. And then all of a sudden, the winds would pick up just a little bit, and then more, And then there would be more. And then there would be this feeling in the air that I would, I started to really recognize more and more as I experienced it. It was like this feeling of wind. And with the wind, often it's almost like it almost seemed like everything started to kind of get more quiet. It was like, and what I came to understand was that it was always the calm before a big storm, often a big thunderstorm and lightning storm. But there was always that time right before that big storm where it was like there was this electricity or power in the air. And it wasn't lightning then, it wasn't thundering then. It was like right before then, where there was just this amazing, amazing feeling of power that was kind of building up, if you will. And I don't know the mechanisms of weather and, thunderstorms and lightning storms and all of that. But I do know that as a kid, I would come to recognize this and revel and marvel at just how it felt to be out in nature or to just be outside when this would happen, because you could feel the power of nature in the air, or at least I could feel it. I could just feel it. It was like the birds started to get quiet, and I don't know, maybe the horses started to kind of like look up, or, animals, they know it, they sense it. They're in sync with nature. Especially wild animals, but also horses for sure too. And it was always this like magical time. This magical time when you could just feel the electricity in the air as the wind would kind of like whip up. And you could feel it. It was almost like a warning, but not a bad warning. I learned to like find it fascinating and find it to be completely rejuvenating and completely kind of reawakening and re-enlivening, because inevitably what would happen is the wind would pick up more and more, and then there would be that stillness where it just felt like everything was on pause. Nothing was happening in that moment, but I always could feel like the charge of, it was like there was just this kind of a quiet silence. And then the storm would start. And there would be thunder and lightning and rain. And it was always so magical to me and amazing to experience it, because the thunder and lightning, was so powerful. It's like we never know where it's, where you're going to hear it and where the lightning's going to strike. And, it was always this like, oh my gosh, like I could just feel the charge in the air, and then the rain, we would have these, just it would just start raining really hard, and it would just pour, and sometimes the clouds would roll in and everything would go from being blue skies or, skies with just some clouds in it to like, a lot of clouds. And and it would just pour down. And it was this amazing, kind of like healing for the earth is kind of like the best way that I can describe it. It was this feeling of, it's like the ground, and the grasses and the plants and the trees were wanting water, and in syncness with nature, it would just come, and there would just be this amazing nourishment to the earth, to the land, to the grass, to the trees, to the plants, to the animals. And it always was so, I don't even know. There's this feeling. I can experience this sense of nostalgia for it because it felt so awesome. And that, really is kind of another thing too. The rain, when the rain would come down, and it was, it was, there of course was the, question of not being out, in a spot where you could get struck by lightning or thunder, but sometimes it would just rain and it would just be raining, and being out in the rain in weather like that was so wonderful. Yeah, you get soaked, your hair gets messed up and whatever, but like just embracing it and being out in it and having it just soak you. And yet in Pennsylvania, the rain was, it was warm. I don't know if the rain was warm, but the temperature was warm. So, it wasn't that kind of like bone chilling kind of rain. It was more like this gift of relief, which is, exactly kind of like what I was talking about here in Montana with the wind. Like we had this heat and it was just like kind of like unrelenting and constant, and it seemed to kind of get hotter and hotter, and just it looked like there was no end in sight. And then there was this wind. We had this wind and it was amazing. Well, it was the same thing when I lived in Pennsylvania, and we would just have, it was like hot and humid, and then there would be this wind that would pick up and it felt so magical. And then we would have this torrential downpour of rain. And the rain brought its own, magic, brought its own amazing power that I would revel in and still, revel in right now. All of these elements that I'm talking about, the wind and the rain and all of that, the lightning and the thunder, bring these feelings to me, these kind of like energetic feelings of awe and power and respect and appreciation for, the power of nature and its role on our earth and its role in my life, really, and its effects on me. With the rain, one of the things that I learned to do from my mom was just go out in it, just be out in it. She used to, I can't remember if I mentioned this in any of the episodes to date, but I remember she used to talk about how she would just love to go out and walk, on the streets in the rain when it was pouring down, and the rain would kind of collect on the sides of the road in the gutters. And so it would be kind of deeper there. And she would just walk through the gutters and just feel the gushing water around her in the rain. And when she first talked about that, I was like, what? And then I started doing it, and I was like, this is so cool. There is just something so cool about it. and experiencing it, and where you just let yourself be okay in it, right? Like not worrying about your hair, not worrying about your clothes, not worrying about where you need to get to, not thinking about anything except for this amazing experience of being in the rain and walking through, a gutter on the side of the road full of rain and feeling it on your bare skin and feeling the raindrops and, the respite and the power and all of it that it offers you. And I really feel that this is, it's such a gift. It's such a gift when we can allow ourselves to embrace these amazing gifts from nature. These amazing gifts that I think, I don't know, I know for me, they touch me at a heart and soul level. Like they touch my soul. They touch my heart. Moments like this, experiences like this, even talking about it, I feel it. I feel like an opening in my heart. I feel an opening in my soul. It's like the nature and the naturalness of me resonates and kind of sinks in with the nature and the naturalness of Mother Nature in these moments of this incredible energy and power, with the wind and with the rain and feeling it. One of the things that I love about where we live in Montana, and it's so funny because when summer comes, I've been here long enough now to kind of learn some of the patterns. And in the summer, when it's just kind of really hot and sunny, I kind of just feel like I'm kind of, I walk around in a bit of a daze. I feel like it's just, I kind of don't really want to go outside and do much. Or if I do, I need to be in the woods or in the shade, or, have a big hat on or whatever. I really love the, I love the winters here. And I love the spring and the fall. And I love when the weather changes. I love, I joke that, I feel like we watch the mountain in front of us. That's the way I feel. I feel like it puts on a show for us. Like it's not just, oh, we live by this mountain and, it is what it is. I feel like it's almost like a TV show, and we get to watch it and experience it because it's always shifting. Now in the summer, it is shifting as well. I do, see clouds and, we have smoke that comes from fires that are in other places that can affect our visibility and all of that. But I really love when I can just see the variety of weather in looking at this mountain. Like often you can see when the clouds are kind of brewing and a storm is going to come upon us. You can see it kind of up the valley. I can call my husband when he's at home and say, it's coming your way. It's coming down the valley. And there's just something so cool about that. I feel like there is something so amazing about nature and how it shifts and changes and gives us this amazing, show and set of experiences that we can have that I find to be very empowering, because it's like what I was saying. It's like something about nature in those moments, nature at all times, really, because that's what this show is about. But I especially feel it in those moments when it feels like nature's power is so being almost like accentuated in my awareness. And it's kind of like it syncs up with me and my own innate power and awareness. And there is a flowing and a connection. And I feel like that is, it's hard to put to words, but I feel like that is what we tap into, that that is what causes, when we go into nature with the kind of perspective that I talk about, because I've certainly gone into nature with a different perspective and not experienced this. But when we go into nature with openness and kind of acknowledging it for what it is and being open, it's like we sync up with it, and it syncs up with us. And that's when I find that, whatever it is that is right for us in that particular moment, we can experience. It can be, for me, it's been so many things, and I've talked about some of them in the episodes so far, and I'm sure I will talk about it more in, more episodes. But, it's like, if it's something related to my creativity that is kind of calling me from within myself in my life, and I go into nature, suddenly it's like it opens me up to that. If there's something in how I'm taking care of myself or not taking care of myself, I go into nature and I suddenly become aware and can open up to that. If there are emotions that I've just kind of not been able to, like they've been at the cusp of my awareness, and I'm just really confused, I can go into nature and those emotions can just kind of flow, and then something shifts in me. I could go on and on and on again with all the different examples of the ways in which nature can kind of really give us whatever it is that I believe that I've come to understand, that our souls and our hearts are kind of wanting us to have access to and be aware of and revel in that moment. And when we experience that, it's like a sinking in to the wellness and the well-being and the knowingness and the wisdom within us of being okay that has always been there. It's like we suddenly are okay no matter what. We're in sync somehow with ourselves, and we're in sync with nature. And there is a flow. And to me, that is what I call magic. This amazing magic where there is just this flow. And it's not anything that's being controlled or dictated, or we don't make it happen. We don't force it to happen. We don't get other people to give it to us. Other people don't give it to us and we're without it. It is already there, but it's like it emerges out. And it's always been there. But its presence becomes known to us. And that, to me, is magical. And I find that all aspects of nature, when I am open to it, it can give me the opportunity to tap into this. But in particular today, I wanted to talk about the wind and also about rain, because they're just more examples of the power of nature that I have experienced, and maybe that you have as well. And, it's funny, I feel like in closing, there's something that I want to ask you, listeners. If you've been resonating with this show, there must be something about nature that is calling you, or that you appreciate, or that's drawing you, or you recognize, about its power, or you desire, more connection with it. And I really would love to hear your stories. I really would love to hear your experiences with nature. So if you have had an experience with nature, and that could mean any aspect of nature or the natural world or something natural. So wildlife, plants, trees, the weather, mountains, lakes, water, anything like that. Reach out to me. Send me an email, hello@michellewaldo.com. And that's MICHELLEWALDO.com. So hello@michellewaldo.com. And let me know. And what I want to do, it's something I did with my my very first podcast that I had, that I found was so wonderful for me and for everybody, is I want to share your stories. I want to share your experiences. I want to share them on the podcast. And so tell me what they are, and I will share them. I'll pick, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling my way as I go with this. With my old past podcast, I would share, people would reach out to me and I would share kind of one comment. But I don't know. It might be multiple sharings. It might be, maybe we have a larger conversation. But start by emailing me and letting me know. And I ask you for permission in sharing it on the show, because I feel like the more that we each and all speak about our experiences with nature and with natural world, the experiences of how magical it can be and the impact that it can have and has had on our lives, it's almost like, or it is like, that is what opens up the conduit for more. That's what I've experienced. The conduit for more awareness, more experiences like that, more magic. And by sharing this with each other, it's like we create the inspiration for others to share their stories, and for us to then continue to have our own and to add to our own experiences about the power of nature. So email me and I will share your experiences, just like I've been sharing and will continue to share mine. And I will end on that note for today's episode. Until the next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Power of Nature podcast. To learn more about me and my other offerings, you can visit my website at michellewaldo.com. That's MICHELLEWALDO.com.